Working in banking, doing a lot of wanking.
I only know one accountant, and it's definitely
Because I
what
think
they do.
Pounds and pounding. Particularly for men still, there is this idea that toys are competition rather than complement.
Right.
They worry for a start that a toy will replace them somehow in the bedroom.
If you're baking a cake and you need to whip up some cream, no one in their right mind will spend 20 minutes hand whipping cream. We will turn on the mixer and allow technology to do the job for us.
Celebrities make a few bob out of a silicone knob.
Do you think there'll come a time where the trend does fall off the radar a little bit? Or do you think this wave is going to keep waving?
Because, we can be in a mood for one thing one day and not the next. It can tickle our pickle and float our boat on one occasion, and then we're like, I'm more turned on by the idea of 17-day-old pork pie jelly than I am touching myself with this gelatinous object.
Hello and welcome to Coming on Top, a podcast that dives deep into the world of sex, love, dating, relationships, and we also touch on the worlds of tech and culture. Each episode, we'll be tackling a different topic, looking at the highs, the lows, and everything in between. All those hard questions that you've always wanted to ask but were too afraid, we'll be answering them on this podcast. In today's episode, we'll be discussing the rise of sex toys and the impact that they have on women's pleasure, both in and out of a relationship. Joining me today is Alix Fox, an award-winning journalist and broadcaster who specialises in sexual culture and well-being, and Annabelle Knight, a sex toy expert and one of Lovehoney's resident sex and relationship experts. Welcome, ladies.
Hello.
Hi.
So, girls, tell me a little bit more about yourself. I'm going to start with you, Annabelle.
Oh my goodness. So I'm Annabelle Knight. I'm a UK-based sex and relationships expert. I've got qualifications in psychosexual therapy and couples counselling and life coaching as well. I'm an author of women's fiction and erotic romance novels and general sex enthusiast.
Amazing. Alix Fox?
Well, for a start, I feel more grand than the Grand Old Duke of York playing a baby grand piano with £1,000 in his back pocket to be here today. So thank you very much. I've been delving into the ins and outs and ups and downs and side to sides of sex for about 18 years now. I'm a script consultant on the Netflix show Sex Education. I'm writing a book called The Missing Kink, all about fetish, and making a documentary, I hope, about elder people's sex lives and what we can learn from those who've spent more on this earth making the earth move than we have.
I love that.
That sounds amazing.
Who better to give advice, right?
Well, I'm rapidly becoming a dirty old pervert myself, so it feels like I'm just learning what my future holds.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, so to kick things off, let's start, of course, with my sex fact of the week. All right, ladies, so a 2021 survey looked at which profession used sex toys the most. Out of the office hours, of course.
Unless you're us.
Unless you're us, otherwise.
In the office, yeah.
Any guesses of which profession came out on top?
I don't know. I think accountants.
Politicians.
Oh, I'm very impressed. So you said accountants. Accountants did.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Working in banking, doing a lot of wanking.
I only know one accountant, and it's definitely
Because I
what
think
they do.
Pounds and pounding.
And I think accountants, they do get a little bit of slack, don't they, for being sort of very geeky and a bit of a boring profession, I'd say. Do you find that those kind of professions that you don't expect people to be sort of sexually liberated are the ones that secretly are into like the kinky things? What would you say?
Oh, I think I don't know if profession and job and what you clock in the morning to do has much impact on what you like in the bedroom. Maybe if your job is very regular and quite routine, you might be more drawn to experimentation a little bit more in your free time. So yeah, perhaps there's a link there.
Because you said politicians, didn't you?
Yeah, I was just thinking about people who say in public that they're squeaky clean
and
in private are being downright dirty. I'm not surprised by people working in finance, though. If it's anything like my poor accountant who is like biting his nails as I push my tax return just to the last hour before it's due, I think he is due all the stress relief that he can manage.
To relieve that stress.
Same as Annabelle, though. I try not to make assumptions about what people's sexual interests will be from the rest of their life.
Yeah.
But traditionally, if you're looking at stuff like kink and fetish, people who have really high pressure jobs, many of them tend to really enjoy being submissive in the bedroom, because if you spend your days being hugely responsible for making big decisions, and it's always your job to decide what happens, and things will go wrong if you don't do it right. Handing over that responsibility to somebody else in your downtime, when you want to kind of get a little bit of escapism, can really give a huge sense of relief and release.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And like we said, I don't think somebody's profession is necessarily a reflection of their sexual habits, but it is known widely that particularly men in a position of power tend to like to be a bit submissive, because that's the only sort of, I guess, area in their life where they can be.
There's that link as well with privately educated young men of a certain age, where there's a link to like bondage and being slippered or receiving the cane, because that would be a time when they gained attention, and like all press is good press type approach. So they would get slippered or they'd get the cane, and it would be like a talking point, and they'd get a little bit of an adrenaline release from being like the bad boy, and they'd feel popular. And then somewhere along the lines that kind of slipped into their sexual life as well.
Yes.
So there's like an Eton kind of private school link between that and bondage, which I have always liked.
Yeah.
It's an interesting reading of that situation, because I suppose if you are receiving that kind of punishment at a very sexually formative time, like time in your life, it's also not uncommon that if you found something traumatic and actually you haven't enjoyed that, then the attention, it hasn't been something that you have loved, the pain wasn't something that you enjoyed as a younger person, to reframe that as a sexual thing later in life allows you to take back some of the power and feel better about those memories and those associations. So for some people, reframing something that was previously traumatic, we see this sometimes in cases of sexual abuse and rape, people, and this doesn't go for everybody, some people find it therapeutic to then, in a safe, controlled, contained environment, replay those scenarios in ways where they are in charge and the outcome is pleasurable. So it sort of neutralizes, or can neutralize, those memories. It's very complicated though, isn't it? And psychology really differs between different people.
You know, the key thing there was the like regaining control of that trauma or that memory.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating.
Isn't it? Okay, now on to the mass debate, and I can feel a little bit of a buzz in the studio as we get ready to talk about sex toys. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen, those little plastic molds of joy continue to rise in popularity, with the global sex toy market estimated to hit a whopping 54.6 billion by 2026. How is this not a challenge on The Apprentice just yet? Get them to make a sex toy. It's a no-brainer.
I think I would actually watch that show if there
wouldn't
was
we
a sex
all?
toy challenge,
Right?
Yeah.
Do Lovehoney still do their annual competition where people get to design a sex toy?
Oh my goodness, the designer sex toy. I have had some nightmares about some of those entries. There was one guy who wrote in with it was like a pencil crayon drawing, and it was pants that you could unzip, but they had teeth that you could put in.
Ooh! Teeth? Like vagina dentata style?
Yeah, it was...
Interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting.
So, ladies, why do you think that sex toys continue to rise in popularity? I'll start with you,
Because
Alix.
I'm buying 97% of them. Editors, that's why all of my commissions are late. I apologise. I think it's becoming less taboo to talk about pleasure and self-pleasure. Not that toys are strictly for solo experiences. I think more and more people are using them with partners too. And so more people are experimenting. I think some safe sex toys are becoming a little bit more financially accessible, although they still, in the majority, remain very expensive, which means that it's difficult for everyone to be able to afford to experiment with them. It's also interesting, isn't it, how sexual pleasure is increasingly being thought of as part of more general well-being and health.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like just to... I have very little to add. It's true, like sex toys are becoming more accessible, kind of universally more accepted, I think is something that's really important. Like you only have to go back like a few years ago and people would shy away from that. There's been a recent study that said like a third of people in relationships find it difficult to almost impossible to talk to their partner or partners about introducing sex toys into the relationship. But in saying that, that number is shrinking, and there are more and more people who are feeling more positive about things, especially when we look at kind of sex influencers and social media and making it more accessible. And the more you see it, the more socially acceptable that becomes to you internally. So the more better equipped and able you are to speak about that, whether that's to friends or to your partner or partners.
Why do you think people might be a little bit reluctant or maybe a little bit shy to talk about sex toys or implementing them in the bedroom with their partner?
I think it's really important, first of all, that while we're having these conversations and acknowledging things like how much the internet has made it much easier not only to find out about sex toys, but to buy them discreetly, no matter where you are, and quite conveniently for a lot of people. A lot of the taboos which perhaps we perceive as being increasingly busted because we work and operate in quite sexually liberated circles still very much do exist for a lot of people, especially if there are cultural or religious influences, or you're just somebody who associates your own value and your self-worth with being a great partner and great in bed. Those things can still be real stumbling blocks. I think particularly for men still, there is this idea that toys are competition rather than complement.
Right.
They worry for a start that a toy will replace them somehow in the bedroom. And secondly, they don't view them as teammates or tools to expand their sexual repertoire and make it easier to bring all sorts of different types of pleasure. They feel scared that they're looking at these toys that can rotate or vibrate or rumble at speeds and with power that their tongues and their penises and their fingers simply can't achieve. So there is this association between toys and feeling quite emasculated. I find it really useful to liken toys to axes. And bear with me, this is nothing like the pants with the teeth, right? If someone said, I want you to cut down that tree, you wouldn't feel like you were a lesser person or worse at your job or less of a man if you needed an axe to do it because you couldn't achieve it with your bare hands, right? Whether you're trying to start a fire in the bedroom or chop down a tree to get yourself some tinder wood to start a fire in your house, learning how to use the right tools, collaborating with your partner to start that heat is much more impressive than being frightened because you feel that using an axe will somehow make you less of a great lover.
I love that analogy. And do you find that, because I think sex toys have traditionally been sort of targeted and geared towards women and women's pleasure, not so much men, particularly heterosexual men. So do we find that as the market is growing globally, as we said, that men are becoming a little bit more open to the idea of using sex toys?
Yeah, I mean, I think more and more people are becoming more open to the idea of sex toys, regardless of how you identify, who you go to bed with, or what's between your legs. Essentially, all sex toys are there for is to increase your ability to appreciate and to experience pleasure. And who doesn't enjoy pleasure? Like when we go to bed with someone or when we go to bed with ourselves, the name of the game is to have an enjoyable experience that feels good and that gives you pleasure. So as we appreciate that more, especially as we get older, I know that when people are younger, there tends to be a bit more performative pressure on people. Like, I don't need them. I hear that a lot. I don't need a sex toy. And it's not about need. It's not really about it being a necessity at all. It's about it being the cherry on the top of an already delicious cake. And like you with the axe, I always say, if you're baking a cake and you need to whip up some cream, no one in their right mind will spend 20 minutes hand whipping cream. We will turn on the mixer and allow technology to do the job for us. And I loved what you said. They're not your competition, they're your teammates. I think if we push that message, that will allow people, especially those who are apprehensive about inviting a battery-operated device into the bedroom, I think that will really help people to reassess how they feel about sex toys and to be more open to using them and trying them. And that's the other thing. You only have to try it. If you don't like it, if you say this isn't for me, you never have to use it again, but at least you'll know.
Yeah, no, I agree in that, the conversation's been open a lot more and we are seeing a lot more men sort of willing to sort of explore that side of their sex life. But the reality is it's still not as socially not accepted, but as in men don't really talk about using sex toys. And I think it's still that element of being emasculated, like I can't perform in the bed, it's almost like admitting you need help, and a lot of men don't like to do that. So though it is growing, there is still sort of a niche in the market where you don't really get a lot of, particularly heterosexual men. I think a lot of gay bisexual men are a little bit more open in my clinical experience, I find, whereas with heterosexual men it is still a little bit taboo. So I guess my question is how, in a relationship scenario, what's the best way if you are dating a man who's maybe not tried it before, a bit reluctant, but as a woman you're used to using sex toys or you want to start using, what's the best way to approach that?
Can I just return to this idea that it's still taboo for men, particularly heterosexual and single?
It's perceived as taboo.
Yeah,
Not that it is.
I think it is still taboo. I've worked in media for nearly 2 decades, including pairing up with sex toy companies like Tenga, who are a Japanese brand, who make specifically a lot of sex toys for people with penises, which tend to be a lot less verboten in Japan than they are here in the UK. And getting people to report on those, particularly the male press, to talk about male toys has been really difficult. It's getting better now. You've got people like GQ talking about these things. But in the past, whenever I pitched these to magazines and websites, I'd be told, no, that's too weird. And not only the public's perception, but also the press, who of course feed into that public perception, seem to think that men who used masturbatory aids or sex toys just for their penises on their own fell into one or two categories. They were either the lonesome loner, somebody who didn't have enough social charisma or skills to get a partner, and so they were using toys as kind of a compromise, or they were the professional pervert, the dirty dungeon master, someone who had really kinky tastes, who was looking for something really specific and was like sort of a bit grubby and naughty like that. It's interesting actually to see the strategies that have been used now to market toys to men, because it's not always about talking to them directly. I've noticed, you've seen this viral sensation, the Rose, right? The suction toy that so many people have been talking about on TikTok and Instagram. A lot of the manufacturers who started off making and marketing those toys are now advertising penis stimulators, but they're doing so via women. They're getting those same female influencers to say, well, you love the Rose, now here's the Rose for penises, use this on your man to blow his mind. So it's still women who are being harnessed to talk about the acceptability of male toys. To
sort of lead us to the male market,
Exactly. The toys themselves, though, are starting to look different. I think a lot of people, when they think about a wank toy for guys, a masturbation sleeve, something like that, will think of the fleshlight.
I was just about to say, I noticed a definite shift from anatomical it's a lot more neutral now.
Because we know about like the vibrators and the dildos, the traditional ones. So what are the kind of sex toys that are on the trend now, like that are not outside of the traditional ones?
I think suction toys are just the things that are coming out now, and we were just talking about it before we rolled. Like the technology behind sex toys is it never ceases to blow my mind. I will literally finish a month and I'll be like, okay, I think now I've seen it all. Fast forward a week and I'm like, what is this? So there's the suction toys are absolutely fantastic, especially when they combine like the vibrating settings as well, so you get this flickering sensation. And I think sex toy manufacturers are really trying to kind of push the envelope in terms of how they can provide their like end user with pleasure, and the more inventive they can be, the different types of sensations we can as users can feel. That's what they're aiming for. They're aiming for the Rose or whatever it is, the Starlet from Womanizer, like all of that. And then they're trying to kind of really work with popular culture, celebrities and influencers to bring those toys and those ideas to the forefront of, to your phones, to your screens, to your tablets. So it enters. It's just such a fascinating place to be in at the moment, because everything changes on a dime, doesn't it? It's
It
so
does.
quick.
So there's so many really interesting
and
trends
there are
going on
so
right
many
now.
options. And like I said, every
Yeah.
other month there's something new that you're just thinking, God, have we not done it all now?
Some of those trends I think are really good.
Yeah, no,
you
they
know.
are really cool. And I just think, how do people keep coming up? I mean, it's
But
great.
not all of them. Some
Some of them are hit and miss, aren't they? Let's face it.
I think there is a drive to innovate to genuinely serve a need. For example, to make male sex toys. I use male here very broadly to mean people with penises, whilst fully acknowledging that some men don't. You know, there's a move towards making male sex toys look less like genitalia. I've been doing some work with Durex lately, and a poll that they conducted found that some women saw toys that looked like vaginas as rapey, so they didn't they found it quite threatening for their male partners to be using those toys, whereas something that looked a lot more sort of stylish and almost sculptural appealed to different people. There's also trends towards more eco-friendly toys with ranges like the Womanizer have done a premium eco. There's a brand called Love Not War where they're made out of recycled aluminium.
There's
There's wood
toys,
ones. Shack Rubs, who were famous for the crystal dildos, which kind of preceded the rose as an internet sensation, right? They were the rocks that were rocking people's bits. They've now got this new wooden range it's all dyed with eco inks and inspired by ancient fairy tales and stuff. There's a lean towards making toys more adaptable to your own body. So rampant rabbit style vibrators that offer internal and external stimulation, still massively popular. But you've got people like the O Wand who are making ones where you can slide the little stimulating ears up and down the shaft to better suit the contours of your body.
Because how many years and years and years have we seen fixed static toys that don't appreciate that every person's anatomy is slightly different, and the amount of people that have said to me, I tried a rabbit vibrator but it totally missed.
And then they
and
feel
you get hand
broken
cramp
because everyone's talking about how great
well, these are so popular, and why doesn't it
why
work
is it
for
not
me?
working for me?
But to just have them posable means that they are now suitable for no matter what your proportions, no matter what your dress size or how you like to use the toy, you can adjust it so it works for you. And just making pleasure accessible has allowed people to enjoy the products more and to not just enjoy the products more as in like, they now works for me, but to feel in charge of their own, sexual happiness and sexual wellness
and well-being. And do you think that having women as part of the design process actually helps the quality of the of the sex toys that are being designed?
I think there should be a cross-section of everyone involved, just because we are all completely different, and without kind of not necessarily designed by committee, but certainly have your eyes and ears open to the huge different varieties of people that are out there. I think definitely having a lot of different types of people involved in the design process. You can, or at least you used to be able to tell when toys hadn't been considered by the person who was supposed to be using them.
What's the one sex toy that when you discovered it thought, wow, who came up with that?
I know mine.
I can tell straight away.
Well, there've been many, because I guess the flip side of some trends aren't good. We do have to remember that this is an industry, and sometimes that innovation will purely be made to drive sales. So if you are hearing that something is an unmissable must-have toy, do question that, I think, sometimes. And I have also, like you, Annabelle, been in a lot of boardrooms where it's clear that the people who are supposedly trying to make something that will serve people's needs and enhance their pleasure really haven't done their homework, and they're all about just marketing something that plays up to people's concerns about themselves and fears about their own bodies. I totally agree with you that having more people, more women, a greater breadth of diversity and people from all different backgrounds innovating in this way, that's when you get the real breakthrough toys that genuinely serve needs, like people with disabilities or people with things like vulvodynia or vaginismus. One of my favourite toys, and there are many I could have banged and can bang on about, actually was developed by a company who previously made industrial scaffolding.
Oh.
And it really shows, because this thing is heavy.
I was going to say, this could be a good thing in a way.
It's a UK company. They're called Doxy, and they make a mains powered magic wand. Like it's quite a big vibrator. It does look a little scary. It looks like if your home got broken into, then you could break someone's skull with this thing. Yeah,
keep it by the drawer.
But it's really quite beautiful, produced to a really high standard, but more than anything, it's really, really powerful.
Yeah.
And it's useful not only for people who have been anorgasmic, who haven't previously experienced an orgasm, and really like they feel like they suspect they need something really powerful to get them to that stage. But it's also great for people who maybe don't like direct touch for whatever to their genitals, because it's got the heft that the vibrations can travel through clothes. So you can pleasure yourself without being naked, without touching yourself directly if you don't want to. It has also made my electricity bills go through the roof.
And this is not the time for it, is it? Let's face it. Now, Annabelle, you've actually created your own sex toy. Is that right?
I've got a few in the range. It's
Lovely. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, it's been a very collaborative effort. There have been some failures. We made like a vibrating knicker set pants with a little kind of pocket in the gusset, and I helped to design, alongside the amazing team at Lovehoney, a very thin vibrator that could slip into the gusset. And I absolutely loved it. That was my like kind of proudest moment when I held that. I actually cried, and someone did film it. I know, how mean. And I thought it was like, I was like, this is like, I love that this was my idea, and this is like, I'm holding it and it's fantastic.
And what made you want to create a sex toy?
I have worked in and around sex toys for over a decade now, and I have always been fascinated by not just the sheer amount of different toys they are to do different things for different types of people, but also the engineering behind it. I think that the technology is amazing. So to be able to sit down with the buyers and the creators and the design team at Lovehoney and just push a piece of paper in front of everyone and say, these are my ideas, what can and what can't we do? And then to take what is essentially a few words scribbled on a piece of paper and I say a few months later, it does take a little longer than that, but months later have what was in my mind now in my hand. It's just, it feels
This must be an amazing thing. Oh,
you
would cry, wouldn't you, to be fair?
The things that like you don't appreciate in terms of like the creation process is all the additional work, such as the leaflets, the instruction leaflets, and the design for the packaging, and what type of plastic are we going to use inside, because I would like it to be like you're constantly weighing things up, because I want everything in the range to be pocket friendly, because I think pleasure should be available to all, aside from manual stimulation. So everything's kind of around the £20 mark, so it is affordable. But how do we, because it is a business and it does have to turn a profit, and Lovehoney aren't going to put loads of money into my sex toy range if it's not going to sell. So then how do we keep it affordable but make it good as well? Because if we want to use more environmentally friendly packaging, that puts the price point up. So it's a constant kind of compromise from a lot of different corners to get the end product.
Now, speaking about creating your own sex toy, we've seen celebrities such as Lily Allen and Cara Delevingne, launching their own sex toy brands. Do you think this adds to the rise in popularity to them?
Cara Delevingne's has just closed down, hasn't it, Laura?
Oh, has it?
Yeah. So
do we know why? Hot off the press?
It was very controversial.
Tell us a little bit about that.
They took a lot of people's money and then didn't deliver the toys, as I understand it. Yeah, and a lot of sex toy reviewers, professional reviewers, didn't like that range. It got a lot of hype in the press, in like broad mainstream press, who thought it looked interesting and Cara's name attached to it was very popular. So it started some interesting conversations, but there were arguments amongst those who really are in the know that the products themselves were a bit subpar. But Lily Allen has had her own version of the Womanizer. I'm going to put my hand up and lay a little bit of claim for that, because I actually told Womanizer that she mentions their products in her autobiography, so maybe I got that ball
I hope you got your permission on that.
I don't know. Who else? There's been loads of people. What's the lady's name from 50 Shades of Grey? I should know this.
Oh,
I almost
don't
said
know her name, yeah.
Erica.
Not the person who wrote
Dakota
it. Dakota Fanning.
Fanning.
Thank
Dakota
you.
Fanning.
How did I forget the name of someone who's almost Fanny, right? Dakota Fanning. She's really interestingly launched her own butt plug, and I think that's cool because
Yeah.
it's definitely more taboo to talk about liking bum stuff, right?
So do we think it's a good thing that actually people in the public eye are coming out and it's sort of normalised, or is it a case of they're just jumping in the bandwagon because they know that this is a
I
growing
think a little
trend?
from column A, a little from column B. I think, we've talked about social media and sex and promotion and making it, if it's on your scroll wheel, it's therefore more accessible. I honestly think if people are going to try a sex toy or try something new, or even just become more open to talking about that with someone they're going to bed with, or even with themselves, I think we can't go wrong with that. I think there's a slight, how do I word this without sounding? It sometimes feels a little disingenuous when someone has never previously expressed any interest, or maybe not put any content out there, or supported like sexual causes in any way, to then see their face plastered everywhere with a sex toy. But it takes all sorts to make the world go round, and I think if overall the effect is a positive one, then
There are bigger battles when it comes to sex and pleasure and consent and, sex-related conversations, perhaps then going, it's a terrible thing that celebrities make a few bob out of a silicone knob.
Do you think there'll come a time where the trend does fall off the radar a little bit? Or do you think this wave is going to keep waving?
I think people are more concerned now, perhaps, in buying something that will investing to last.
Well,
you were talking about this earlier,
Because we
actually.
spoke about the cost of them, and they're not cheap, are they? Your average toy does cost.
I do think, like, buy the best you can, but don't bankrupt yourself for a dildo. It's just, if you're going to get yourself into debt or, go without in other areas, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
I will say on the flip side, I have had the Lalo Soraya, which I don't believe they even make anymore, for 14 years.
What was the toy? Like, what was its main
essentially
selling point?
Lalo's a kind of high-end luxury sex toy company, and it is essentially a rabbit vibrator, but a very pretty high-end luxury looking one. And that's 14 years going strong, and they do last if you
Look after them.
Keep them clean, keep them safe.
Yeah.
It's like Frodo's ring.
And so if one or several, whoever is listening, if our listeners are thinking about, buying a sex toy for themselves or, to use with a partner, what's the best way to pick one? If you're a complete novice and there's all these options, how does one go about finding out? Like, should you focus on something that is more sort of clitoral stimulation, or is it more about the G-spot?
Well,
I know everyone's
Yeah.
different, but like, what would you say to the average person?
I would ask yourself questions about what it is you're seeking.
Right.
What kinds of touch do you enjoy most? Are you looking for like soft caresses or something with more power and maybe firmer presses? Do you just want to focus on your clitoris or the external parts of your body? Or do you like internal stimulation towards the G area, which we now know that what used to be called the G spot after Grafenberg, which is about 1-2 inches up the front wall of the vagina, so towards the belly button, not towards the back. We now think that actually stimulates hidden inside parts of the clitoris. So that's why for a lot of people that part of the body feels so good. If you want to target that, you might be looking at something that's shaped that way. What kind of materials do you like? Silicone is really popular because it feels velvety and silky and it's easy to clean. But there's also a real resurgence of materials like metals and glass and even porcelain. My friend Adele Bridges makes amazing pottery penises, basically, but incredible love objects made out of ceramics.
I absolutely have to know this woman.
I'll introduce you.
Thank
You
you.
do. She's spectacular, proper goddess of a person. So think about the kind of materials that you like. If you like things to feel particularly cold or warm, then something that's easy to use with temperature play might appeal to you. Do you want something rechargeable? so you can, it's a bit more eco-friendly? Or do you want something that uses batteries so that you don't have to wait and have the thing plugged in before
By the
you can
time
plug
it's
it
charged
into
up, you're
yourself?
like, oh, I'm asleep now.
I think really thinking about what you want from a toy rather than what you've just been told by everyone around you is a must-have.
And if
Lovehoney
you want
reviews,
yeah,
right?
absolutely, reviews, absolutely brilliant. And if you're not 100% sure, if you're quite new to everything and you're kind of dipping your toe, there are really affordable sex toy sets you can get, whether they're for solo pleasure or within a couple, with a variety of different products in, different toys. Some even will give you some like bondage stuff, so you can really experiment and play. And then when you've kind of found your feet with what you like, you can then look to maybe investing in something a little more like longer lasting, or just adding to your collection if you get the buzz.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. Test maybe something cheaper, so long as it's body safe, and then upgrade.
Yeah,
I think it's worthwhile bearing in mind as well, that particularly if you're someone who has menstrual cycles, but also everybody, because we can be in a mood for one thing one day and not the next. It can tickle our pickle and float our boat on one occasion, and then we're like, I'm more turned on by the idea of 17-day-old pork pie jelly than I am touching myself with this gelatinous object. I think if it doesn't work for you the first time, try again on another occasion if you're so inclined. Try a different position with your body as well as positioning the toy differently too. Try it with a different lube, or with lube if you haven't done it already. Try it in the shower or the bath if it's waterproof. Sometimes having your whole body relaxed and supported, or listening to some erotica, doing a mindful masturbation meditation. If you're tense thinking, I want to come, why isn't it happening? Then the greatest toy in the world might struggle to overcome what's happening in between your ears, and make what's happening between your legs work.
Love it. Right, ladies, so let's end with a quick quiz courtesy of our very own audience, okay? So I asked our audience to share with us their favorite sex toy, and there was one clear winner. Which do you think it was? Now, the first person to get it right comes out on top.
What's the prize?
You come out on top. You win. You win the
Annabelle,
episode.
could it be one of your beautiful?
So whoever
I wish it was the Annabelle Knight Nick vibrator.
So whoever says the right answer,
bullet vibrator.
From this audience, I'm gonna guess it's an air pulse or a suction vibrator because they're so hot right now.
Do we just keep
no,
going?
both wrong.
I was going to go rabbit, and I thought, no, it's too
that's a good bet.
Well, it's the womanizer.
Oh, that is an
Which is
Yeah.
I guess in terms of the name of the toy. So the womanizer came out on top.
Do you know, can we just talk for a moment about the fact that the Womanizer, it's a German brand. When they first came out, everyone said, that is a terrible name. It doesn't translate well to the UK
and
audience.
you think,
But do you think it's a worthy winner?
womanizer?
Do you think it's a worthy winner?
I think the technology that they have designed, developed, and extended and put out there for us is amazing. Like, anyone with a clitoris, if you haven't tried a suction-based toy such as a womanizer, and there's so many to choose from in the range now, especially now we have like the Starlet and the kind of easier on the purse strings toys. Just give one a go, because like the majority of people, when I first saw it, I said that is not going to work. Especially as I was testing it on my finger. I was gifted one and thought, I'll just try it. I mean, I've got to do this for my job, and oh my God, this is amazing. Literally on the phone to every single one of my girlfriends saying, I've got you a present.
It is a great vibe.
And there were other ones that also came out on top. So such as the Rabbit Lily vibrator and the Chastity Pants.
Chastity Pants.
With the dildo,
Ooh.
So people out there are quite well
experienced,
quite well versed in their
I'm not
experience.
surprised by the Womanizer though. When they patented that technology, it really was one of the first genuinely different things I'd seen in ages. And the fact now that people slap around the word womanizer as though it's a great thing, they've literally changed the meaning of that
the
term,
word.
right?
It's almost like an empowering term, isn't it? So you were almost right, because you described the type of toy, just the name. Yeah.
I think you definitely got that. I thought we were talking like specific product. I was like, everyone's got a bullet vibrator. That's the most popular.
It's a great place to start.
Yeah,
as well,
I
isn't
would,
it, when we're talking
definitely
about-
just as a little add-on. Bullet vibrators are very discreet, very petite.
But also, I think like
Versatile.
if you ask your average Joe on the streets to name a vibrator, type of vibrator, and thing, the womanizer is the one that's sort of the most popular. I guess people know.
If you know the names, or
if you know the
I
names,
think
because
you're-
there's a lot of other that do similar things, but just go by a different name. But I guess
Yeah.
womanizer has had the biggest press.
The
and-
press, yeah,
I
definitely.
think Annabelle's guess of rabbit is really bang on though.
Yeah, and it did make it in the top 3.
Did you know that the
Yeah.
rabbit originally had 3 little cousins? There was a little green turtle, a beaver, very sad there's not a beaver anymore, or a kangaroo, I think. Yeah, and a kangaroo. But it was the rabbit. It was originally
caught
brought
on.
over from, I think, Japan. That was the one that really made waves in the UK because it was so cute.
Literally made waves
Yeah.
between our legs.
Ladies, I'd like to thank you so much for coming on the episode today.
Oh, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. And let us know where we can find you. I'll start with you, Alex.
In the darkest corners of the internet. I'm horribly easy to find. If you search for ALIX, one eye like Cyclops, and Fox like the dirty animal that roots through your bins, then you shall find me all over the place. I'm about to start doing TikToks for the Eve Appeal, who are a gynecological cancer charity. So go and learn about how to take care of your bits down below and know what your normal is by watching me fart around in 30-second videos.
Quite the treat.
Yeah, I really sold it there, didn't I?
Yeah, like Alex, I am just Google. I'm so old. I say Google my name, but yeah, Google my name on the social media channels, Annabelle Knight, and I'll pop right up.
The
Lovely.
icon, Annabelle Knight.
Yeah, if you could add that too.
Don't forget to like, comment, and share. And of course, leave your review wherever you're watching or listening. Thank you, and stay tuned for more juicy bits on Coming On Top.